All right. Well, here we are. Welcome, men. Night the King podcast. I got a super special guest today. I'm excited to dive into some deep men's work today. So, if you're someone that's been listening to the episode for a while or listening to the show, you know we like to get into all aspects of men's work. And I got a special guest, Francis Piché, today. Welcome, Francis. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me, my friend.
Yeah. And we know that you're about to make a big move across the country. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a lot of that's a new chapter that is starting. So it's very exciting. As any chapter, you there are some fears that are involved. There's also some excitement. So it's part of life. I think I'm choosing to be fueled by faith and excitement. Because when you think about fear and excitement, it's pretty similar, right? Like they say, physiology speaking, it's just an expectation of something good or something bad. So I'm expecting something good, which is why I will choose excitement.
I knew from the moment we had our connection call last week, and we were introduced by a mutual friend, Katya. Shout out to her and the work she's doing, helping wellness practitioners all around the world get connected. We were like speaking the same language, and I'm laughing inside right now because what you just shared about fear and excitement is something I talk about all the time. It's something back to my doctor chiropractic roots where I would have to explain to people that literally, to your words, fear and excitement are the same exact physiology, right? Our palms get sweaty, our heart races, and it's the story that we put to that physiology that determines whether something is exhilarating or something we're fearful about. Right? It's like the clutch player in sports where it's like he's scared to catch the ball or he's like, give me the ball, right? Like it's exactly that. And so I honor you for making a big change. I know you're in a big life transition and men's work in general is about transitions. It is about stepping into the unknown. It is about getting out of our comfort zone, not to sound cliche, but that's where all growth happens. And I love that you're going into this and choosing what story you're going to tell yourself about it, and also stepping more into faith and trust and knowing that there's a bigger plan for your life. And I feel like we're just getting right into it, but
Yeah,
maybe
thank you, Michael.
you can share with the listeners a little bit about your origin story. I know you've come up into men's work in the last 10 years from another career. Maybe you can share a little bit about that before we dive deeper into the actual work.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to acknowledge how you're explaining everything about fear and excitement. This is for the listeners now. They know, like, really, it's about understanding first, right? And once we understand things, it's a lot easier to go through it. So, just want to acknowledge you on that.
Thank
And
you.
it's interesting because you say you were giggling inside. I asked God. I just said, "Can I just be the channel for this podcast and just like be in my heart?" And so seems like it's already working because you're you're like your body was giggling inside. So yeah, so a little bit more about me. As you can hear with my French accent, I'm coming from Montreal, so that's where I was born. I've always wanted to travel when I was a kid. I love people, I love culture. And as I'm talking to you right now, I'm just hearing like some of the thoughts, and some of the thoughts were that my aunt said, if there's anyone in the family that's going to travel, it's going to be Francis. And they speak English. My uncle was born also French Canadian, but he's kind of the first one that just moved away from Quebec, and so he went to a different province. And so I don't know where it came from, but I always wanted to travel. So I finished school in marketing and international business, and then I saw that a lot of the people would have opportunities and go somewhere, and my career didn't allow me to do it. And so I remember where one time my friend said, well, you got to create it. You got to create something in the universe. So what I decided at that time is that I was working for Xerox, and I've always been in sales, and I love sales and everything. So I decided to put my condo on the market, and which was only 9 months after it was built. I think actually not even no, I lived in it for 9 months. So I must have probably put it on the market maybe 6 months after. It takes a year and a half to build, and 6 months after I'm putting it in the market, because I just thought, like, if I really want to travel, like, what am I going to do? Like, am I going to wait for something to happen, or am I going to actually just make a move? And so
Mm.
I didn't know exactly where I would be, but I had this idea that I would want to be in Ireland because, for whatever reason, when I went there for a president's club, I just fell in love with the vibe. It's not, I like places where it's not necessarily too big and too exhausting per se. Or, I mean, I love these places like maybe temporarily, but if it's just always go, 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 you feel like your nervous system is a bit in shock. And I knew that I would move, so I didn't want to have all at once these feelings. So, but in a conversation with my friend, I just she said, "Well, actually, they're looking for someone in Vancouver, Canada." So I wanted to live abroad, so that was not necessarily being abroad, but it was cross country and in a different
Sure.
language. So I decided to make that move, and I was hired pretty much easily because I was a specialist at the time, and they needed a super rep. So I lived in Vancouver for 12 years, loved it, and in there, I started to also kind of realize that I was not necessarily happy being a photocopier salesperson or a sales manager. So I didn't know what to do, and to give myself the chance, and I think it's important for that part, give myself the chance to discover what I really wanted. I decided to sell my condo, and we can talk more about this. But down the road, it kind of created a little bit of guilt and shame because I felt, oh my god, like now I'm in the entrepreneurship and I'm losing my savings, and what am I doing? And I could have stayed in corporate and all of it. Now I see that as a move of big courage, really. I just talked to someone last week. The guy has a Porsche. He's doing well, and he's in a situation that he doesn't necessarily like. But I think one of his big fear is to lose what he has. And so what happened during that time is that while you're focused on what you're going to lose, that's exactly what's going to happen, and your flame is diminishing also. And
Yeah.
that's what happened to me pretty early on, just right after university. I chose money instead of my heart. Ironically, my godfather told me at 16, do what makes your heart come alive. Otherwise, you'll be poor all your life.
Woo.
And, 20 years later, I found the card. I'm like, I could have done that.
Yeah.
So, I stayed in a job for 4 years because they were promising a big bonus check. But really, like, when I talk about being in an environment that you don't like, and then the flame is starting to diminish and everything, and then you're not happy, you're resenting a little bit more your job. And, it's not a fun situation to be in every single day. You wake up, I got to go to work, I got to do this. Just for what? For a bonus. And so I guess at one point I got the bonus, and then I decided, okay, so this is not what I want. That's why I went to Xerox. But the day that I started at Xerox, or the week that I started at Xerox, I was engaged with a beautiful woman at the time. In my mind, I'm like, we're gonna get married, we're gonna have the dog, we're gonna have everything. It's just like the whole vision was there. And that week I came home and she said, I want to talk to you. I'm like, yeah, sure, what's up? She's like, I want to cancel the wedding, which was 3 months down the road. So I thought, what? And as a salesperson, I thought, hold on a minute. So what you're saying is that you want to cancel the wedding. What's the new date? What's the new date? Like,
Right.
you're like selling. It's like, there's no new date. It's over. I'm like, wow. So that kind of created a personal path of personal development. I first book I read was The Alchemist, so I felt so good because the
Mhm.
story starts when he
Great.
loses everything, and that was me. What happened is that I moved in Vancouver, felt that I wasn't really happy, sold a condo, and then started a journey of discovering what it was. But again, fear kicked in. You're an entrepreneur and paycheck is not coming, and I had met someone that was in real estate, so I thought I'm gonna be a real estate agent. But that was something I liked for the negotiation and the sales, and I was really good at it, but my heart was still not there. And so, in 2014, had the chance to walk on fire with Tony Robbins, and I started to be involved in coaching. Yeah, we're a fire walker. So, and I met my coach in 2015, and I'm going to stop because I feel like I'm talking a lot at the moment. But I met my coach in 2015, and then I started the journey of coaching. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's actually a perfect place to just pause for a moment because thank you for that. So much to unpack in there. And the reason I asked you about the origin story beyond just getting to know who you are is your story. I mean, I'm inside, I'm raising my hand, like so similar. And I think I know so many men that I've coached, so many men that listen to the show are going through similar things, right? And what I'm hearing, and one of the frameworks we work in Ignite is the hero's journey. And I hear so much of that pathway for you, right? Where it's like you're living this quote unquote ordinary life and there's this call to adventure. There's something more, that your heart wants to do something bigger. There's all the fear, the reluctancy, refusal of the call, as they say in the hero's journey, but then having to say, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to go anyway. Right. I'm going to make the move. I'm going to do the thing that my family didn't do. And I don't know where it's ultimately going to lead. And it wasn't about the job that you got cross country, but that opened up something even further for you to have to go through that part of the hero's journey and face those challenges and overcome things and learn new skill sets. And, we can go through the whole cycle. And that's what I'm
Yeah.
hearing and what you're talking about. And it's like having the courage, as you said, and we've talked about courage when we talked last week, right? Of the heart. It's like having that part of you that's like, I know there's something more. And it's not about chasing the paycheck. It's not about chasing the bonus. I have a man in my group. He just shared the other day. He received a $40,000 bonus for. He's a director of a SaaS sales team, and he's like, I didn't even feel it. It doesn't even matter. He's like, I had to force myself to celebrate that because it's just not about that anymore. And I think that's, granted, we need money to live. Money is, it's a currency. Obviously it's important. And we're not saying don't make a lot of money, but if it's at the expense of your heart, it's at the expense of what makes you truly happy, then it's just really numbers on a screen at this point. Right.
Yeah.
Money will only amplify more of who you are. And that's a whole nother conversation we can have. But I'm hearing so much in your story about like really following what makes your heart happy. And I know a lot of men out there can use that encouragement right now where it's like maybe they're in that W-2 job. Maybe they want to make the
Hmm.
leap to entrepreneurship, or maybe they just want to find more fulfillment in the work that they're doing. So I hear a lot of that in what you're sharing. It's amazing.
Yeah, and my godfather had a key word in that I discovered now is that it was alive, right? What makes your heart come alive? So there's heart and then being alive. And so the reason I say that is, I mean, talking about men, last year I was talking to my friend and also a client, and we're so excited about creating the new path. And let's go, let's do it. He had some, he built a business. He had so much resilience. He built a business in marketing agency, sold it, and then created another company. But that was really tough. Like as a founder, finding the investors, creating the tech, doing all of this, lots of pressure, reinvesting in himself, like taking loans out of the house, so much, right? And for the employees, just being worried if you're going to be able to pay them, and all of this. And so we're very excited about creating something new. And all of a sudden I got a message on LinkedIn from his partner, and she said, can I speak to you? I'm like, sure. And I called her. She's like, he passed away. I'm like, what? And that was just like such a contrast of joy and excitement. And then all of a sudden, he was just jogging, and he had no problems, no issue, no health diagnosis that you can predict that something's going to happen. He just jogged and fell on the ground, like something happened in his heart, and he was gone the same night. So I was shocked, because to me, when I thought about it, I was 46 and he was 47. I'm 47 now. And I asked myself, am I being alive while I'm alive? Because, it's like you could die tomorrow, and then you look back, you're like, was I in fear all the time? Like, what was I creating?
Yeah.
Because, like, the point is to be alive while you're alive. It's not
Right.
just being on a treadmill and say, oh my God, and this and that. And it's, of course, there's some routine, but if most of the time that's what you're feeling, I think it's time for a change. Definitely, right?
Absolutely. I love the Ben Franklin quote. Most men die at 25 but aren't buried until they're 75. One of the things I love about this format and having these conversations is that, you know, I have my what we're going to talk about, and it's like, yeah, we'll get there and it'll happen naturally, but this is what's real. This is what
I
men need to
love that.
hear.
This is how a thing that create magic is created, right? Like I had a quote yesterday based on what you said. I think is very important. It made me laugh at first, and it's so good. It was from Alan Watts. I'm sure you know him.
Oh yeah.
So
Francis, I feel like we're like in different ways spitting images of each other. So let's go, brother. This is
so
awesome.
here's the quote: "You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago."
Yeah.
So it's so true, right? Like, so it's not only courage, but it's also what we're thinking about. What are going to think? Like, and we want the approval and appreciation from other people, but there's no obligation for that. And you can change that, because you're the one on the treadmill. You're the one on this path. Are you being alive? And if you're on actually a path of freedom, that's amazing.
Yeah.
keep on going. And the thing about the goals, which also is another lesson, we can speak about it for a long time. It's, we have goals, and I always thought that the purpose of the goal was to achieve it, which creates a path that could be miserable because you're just waiting for this goal, this freaking goal to happen. Like that was me waiting for the bonus. Oh my God, the
Right.
bonus, the bonus, the bonus. But my path was miserable. And I'm pretty sure that it created what it created with my partner at the time, right? And so,
Right.
because it's not fun. And so now I know that the purpose of the goal is to grow. It's who you're becoming along the way. And so the goal needs to be so exciting that if there are any challenges, you're like, it doesn't matter because I'm still very excited about
Yep.
this. And I love how I'm becoming. And then,
Yeah.
of course, there's fears along the way, and we need to learn how to go through it.
Well, I love that quote. You have no obligation to be the person you were 5 minutes ago. And related to goals, it's like the goal can change, right? We're not the same version of who we are. So what we desire may change, and allowing ourselves to, as men, to pivot, right? As men, we could be so uni focused, right? And we could block out everything else just to get to that goal. And then sometimes we have to pop out of that enough to say, is that really what I want anymore? That was the version of me a year ago, or 5 years ago, or 5 minutes ago. But is that really what's still important to me, right? And the one thing I love about doing men's work, and we can get into that and specifically your group, it's like those aha moments, right? Those epiphany moments where men are like, what the fuck am I been doing? Like, is this who I really am? Is this, one of the strongest needs of the psyche is to remain consistent with its identity. So, we see that in nationalism. We see that in just culturally, where you identify as something, and you will literally fight to the death to uphold this version of you, this identity. So, one of the strong, and this is one of my mentors, Donnie Epstein, said this. I can't take it, but one of the strongest needs of the psyche is to be consistent with its identity. So, when we have an identity crisis, right, and we feel like our world is falling apart, it's not falling apart. You're actually breaking the spell of that illusion that you were supposed to be something. And we work so hard to make all this money, to have all this impact, to do all these things, to impress people that we don't really even care about anyway. It's just the irony of it is just what blows me away, right? And to start to bring this into form in men's work, it's like there needs to be like a code we live by. And I know you're really strong in the code in your group. There needs to be some real core values of like, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, so that I can stand on that and see what the vision is for my life, and not just be ruled by the culture, ruled by family rules, right? All of that, and start to actually come into my own in a different way. I'm curious how that relates to the work you do, and what you see in that.
There's a lot to unpack in there. So many thoughts that are coming. I can just stop at every like 5 seconds and just do something on that. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that the foundation of the values is very important for us. I mean, the interesting part is that we share one word in the same group name. So the name of our group, the men's group, is called the Night Club, but with a K. So it's almost like we're graduating from the discotheque to the real work, the legacy, creating greatness for our life. And I like that because there's an honor in it. And so I was initially looking at the Bushido code and the samurai, and then I just kind of jot down some of the values I like, and I came with the heroic codes. So that's the hero's journey maybe. So the first one, and I think it's very important, is being humble, because one of my friend one time said it's either you're humble or you're going to be humbled in life.
And
And
both.
so we have these moments where we think we're top of the world, and then life is like, dude, I think your ego is a little bit too big right now. And
Yeah.
so we all have challenges, and I think what's amazing when guys are humble is that they can see that there's a challenge that someone has, and that doesn't make them less of, and they're not more of, because they're a step ahead in some direction. Some other guys will be a step ahead in other areas of their life. So, being humble is very important. The second one, which I found is also very important, is excellence. So doing things, we're not winging it. We're doing it because it matters, and we strive for excellence in everything that we do. And the other one is respect. and all guys respect each other. The other one is optimism. And so for me, that one is dear to my heart because it's being alive. It's the dreamers, the ones that want to create an impact, the change makers. Let's be optimistic. We're not going to say, it's not going to work. Nah, nah, nah. It's not negative. It's a positive environment. And just, stats on accountability, I think it's 95% more chances to accomplish your goal when you're in an environment that's positive and you have accountability. So, and then the other one also for me, very important, is integrity. And so that's something that I have a conversation with them pretty much early on when I coach them, is that the difference between most people see integrity as morality, which means that if you're not keeping your commitment or something, you're a bad person. But it's never about that. It's about workability. There's a great article. I don't remember the name of the author, but he said integrity is all about workability. Is this going to work? So being on time, but not treating everyone bad because the guy's not on time. It's like, were you on time? Yes or no? And if you're not, what are you going to do about it? Like having agreements actually, as opposed to expectations. And
Mm.
Steve Chandler has a great audiobook on that. So integrity is treated as, and because also when you see integrity as morality, that means that sometimes you're not going to commit to something big because you're afraid that you will fail. And if you fail, you think that you're not going to be good enough. So it's not about that. It's like, let's commit to the greatest thing and you will fail. Now, the point is more about honoring your word when you do it. And so let's play big. And the
Yeah.
last one is courage. And we talked about it already. So, having the courage to go for your dreams, having the courage to become someone new. And so to go back to what you said, I totally agree. Didn't even know that the psyche is fighting for staying the same. Makes so much sense that people don't like the change, don't like the transformation. And what we learn and what we teach in our group is that because it comes with a mindset program over 12 lessons called Thinking into Results. And that's by Bob Proctor, to me, the best mindset program, because I'm all about let's have a goal and let's work on it half the time. The other time is all supporting whatever you have in your life. And so one of the thing about the subconscious is that it controls 95% of everything you do. So it makes sense also that to become someone new, there's a fight. There's a fight
Yeah.
because the subconscious is used to the familiar. And I know you love also Dr. Joe Dispenza, and you would say, you're either creating a predictable future or you're designing a new future, which means that you literally have to think and be and feel differently. You have to become someone new. And that is where the fear comes in because you're like, well, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
We're fighting the psyche. Is like, who are you right now? Well, great question to ask based on the goal is like, who do I need to become in order to fulfill this mission?
Yeah.
And there's got to have a change because if you don't, then that's going to be the same predictable future. So the scary part is starting to be in the unknown because you haven't been there yet, but it's living it now so that it creates your reality.
Say it for the people in the back. I love that. And thank you for first of all acknowledging our similarity in our names. I thought that was such a funny thing when we first started talking. Obviously, men listening know we're Ignite the King with a K, and I always have to say that to people. And you're the nightclub with a K. I mean, the similarities couldn't be more on point. So love that. I'd like to, as you say, double click on some of these values because I think they're just so awesome and so fundamental. Uh, Being humble, I love that you said you either be humble, or you will be humbled. To quote our guy Alan Watts, he says that the biggest ego trip of them all is pretending you don't have an ego, and
Yeah, that's a good one. He's so brilliant, right?
he's so amazing, right? Totally. And you walk sometimes I walk into rooms and masterminds and things and you'll say, "Oh, there's no ego in this room." And it's like I think that's a misnomer. It's like we need to have a healthy ego, right? We need to have a connection to that. It's not about having no ego. It really is about having a healthy version of that. And to your word, humble is a great way to keep that in check. Life will have a way of humbling us. And I think as men, it's as the modern man and men doing the work, it isn't about having this flashy ego. It's not about having maybe, yeah, if you like fancy cars and flashy things, that's great, but that's not a representation of who you are, right? It is about living more of this, let's just call it a stoic lifestyle where it's not the loudest guy in the room that's the most powerful, right? So you just you
Exactly.
you just stand in your power, and it's felt. It's a feeling. Like you shared the story with your fiance that canceled the wedding, and you were going through all that stress at the time, and you're like, yeah, she could feel it. Maybe I wasn't saying it. And it's like, especially women, they're so intuitive. They know their emotional systems are wired way differently than ours. But you walk into a room, your vibe speaks before you even walk in the room. And as men, I think we have this thing that like we can outsmart people in a way. This is where a lot of that magician trickster energy come in. Like, oh, I
Hmm.
can manipulate, especially people in sales, right? Like, I was a professional, a doctor for a long time, but I was still in sales, right? I still had to enroll people in their care, and there were times I'd walk into that room where I had to make my offer for them to be in care, and yet maybe I was coming off a bad conversation or something that was I was still thinking about, and then, oh, shocker that that person didn't enroll in care, right? Because my vibe spoke way louder than what my words were saying. And when we talk about communication, the words that we say are literally 8 to 10% of what how a message is received. Well over half of a message being received by another is literally our physiology, what state we're
Hmm.
in when we're delivering the message. And then, a portion of it is how we deliver the message, the tone, the timbre, the volume, the pitch, all of that. But really, people do not remember any of the words that we say to them. And, we're going to be on a 45 minute podcast here, right? But it's like, what's the feeling a man walks away with? What's the inspiration? What's the energy that he's like, yeah, that makes me want to be a better person. That makes me want to. I feel you want to jump in here, so I'm going to give you a chance to respond, but I want
No,
to
I
keep
mean,
going
there's
on your
so
values.
much. Yeah, I think it could be extended to 10 hours. Don't worry, listeners, it's only going to be 45. Yeah, the vision that I had when you said that to me, I call myself, and so we can talk about language, right? So there's language that we tell ourselves, the inner dialogue. So the I am statements, or what I call the source code, like what spits your reality. It's just like I am that I am is on everything after I am is what you create. So for me, and we can go in that direction too, but what I create myself to be is I call it I am the lighthouse in the world. So talking about a presence, talking about how you're showing up in a room. So for me, the visual that I have of this lighthouse, I don't know if you've ever seen this picture where it's huge waves, like maybe 30 meters wave on one lighthouse, and the lighthouse is rock solid.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what I aspire to be, because I feel like with all the challenges, the pressure that men have, when you stay as the lighthouse, you're at the bottom of the ocean for the feminine, for
Woo.
everyone around you. That's felt. You're like, this guy is rock solid. And like you said, now you're almost like, I would rather be the guy that enters the room, that, and as to borrow what my friend said, that they're like, you got the pink shirt, but I don't want to fuck with you. Meaning, like, you don't speak, and I'm almost afraid. You know what I mean? Like, is this guy,
Yeah.
this presence, as opposed to the guy that look at me, and I had,
Yeah.
you mentioned things on the outside, and you can have both. The difference is that when there's a foundation as the bottom of the ocean, the lighthouse, the guy that comes in serves, you can feel that, and it's magnetic. It's so magnetic. And I say that, I don't know if it was coming from The Way of the Superior Man by David Data, but he said, women sometimes are like the ocean. The weather can change every 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
so so you're like, you could be like, it's sunny, and all of a sudden there's a storm. It's like, what? And
Yeah.
then, but if you're not the lighthouse, it's tough, because now you're just being smacked by the waves. You're being thrown in one direction and the other. So by staying, like, having this inner mastery of your mindset is
Yeah.
so important.
I love that visual that you shared, not just of the lighthouse. We could think of just the lighthouse being a light beaming out and being a beacon, right?
Guiding, yeah.
But to think about waves crash, because lighthouses are put at points, right? They are put at the edge of where the land meets the sea. And
Hmm.
to have the visual of it's not an easy go out there, and to be able to stand firm and stand tall in the face of whatever is beating us is truly I love the visual, and I love that you claim I am, and of course talk about that in my group as well. Like what you say after I am, you are claiming that in your physiology, you're claiming that in your nervous system. And I'm a bit of a wordsmith in a sense, in that words we say are powerful. We are putting spells on us all the time with the words. It's why we call it spelling. I mean, it really comes down to the words that we use all the time and what we're conditioning in our field, what we're conditioning in the nervous system. And for example, I tell men all the time when I'm asking them a question and maybe a deeper introspective question, and the knee jerk reaction a lot of time is I don't know. And I've eliminated that phrase from my group. You're not allowed to say I don't know, because once you say that, you're eliminating all possibility of tuning into what that answer is, right? To be revealed. Like, I don't know yet, at
Absolutely.
least, something that
Yeah.
says keeps the doorway open. So, and I love that you make it a statement that you say, because one of the pieces of work that I got from my mentor, Donnie Epstein, who I seem to be referencing a number of times on this podcast, because I learned under his tutelage for many, many years, is there's this process of the soul style where you come up with a statement, and not a mission statement, your purpose in life, but your soul essence, your the way that you're showing up as in that future version that you're not quite in yet. Saying, this is the man who I'm becoming. This is the version of me that I want to represent in the world. I am the lighthouse of truth, whatever comes after that.
Mhm.
And it's like the more you condition that in your nervous system and embody that, then you start to show up as that. And then interestingly, life will bring us circumstances, people, situations to help reinforce that, right? Or challenge us to rise up into that version of ourselves. And it's such an important process. And I'm hearing that in what you're saying, and saying this is who I'm going to be. This is who I'm choosing to be. And yeah, it's not always going to be easy. And tying back into something you said earlier, I want to make sure we capture here is that when we make change as a human, as a man, it's not going to be easy. Like you said, 95%, 90 plus percent is our subconscious playing out. These are patterns and conditions that we've had since, we were born. And it takes a lot of shifting the energy, so to speak, to really change that. That's why most people don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways that we teach men in our group that there's two ways to change paradigms. Like you said, the sets of habits and belief system, which runs you. It runs you. Like if you don't do anything, it has a steering wheel for you. There you go. So the way to change it, one is a shock, and usually it's negative. So it would be, having the news from your doctor that you've got cancer, going to change things up because otherwise you're going to die. You're like, oh, I'm going to change that. And then the other one, which is not as sexy, but it's required, it's constant space repetition. Constant space repetition. That means you go to the mental gym every single day. And why does that matter? Because that's your goal. Like, is that worth it? Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't, then 95%, it's not a small percentage, like it's going to run you. And it's been running you for maybe decades.
Yeah.
So, and it was the same way. It was constant space repetition of things that your mom and dad were saying, that your teachers were saying, that the society, the social media, everything, films, movies, so insidious, right? Like you're just watching that little alpha wave, relax, and then you get all that information. And it's interesting because the news were in the morning and at night. So you're just being
Right before you go to bed.
programmed. Yeah, just like all that information. So it's
Why they
constant
call it
space.
programming.
It's crazy. So you got to change it yourself, and that becomes a choice. And I love when you use the word choice because that's another thing that's very important for us. And it's also, I think I had a round table last week and it was amazing with some men and some of the men that are thinking about joining the group. Like it was so powerful. One of them is like, I'm so trusted, let's go. So the one thing that's very important, that the distinction that we made was decision. Because most of us, and I'm still learning on that, and I always ask myself, have I made my decision? Because we're usually waiting for something on the outside to change in order to make a decision. And what's scary is that when you make a decision, you don't know how, which is actually required. Because, like we said, if you want to change and be in a new world, you've got to become someone new. That means you're in the unknown.
Right.
So you're making that decision. From that decision, something's going to show up. Because most of us, like our brain, we treat it as the master, and the brain's like, well, if you turn right, here's what's going to happen, and but if you turn left, then this is what's going to happen. So then you're stuck in the middle, and the one that is the true master is your heart. Coming back to what makes your heart come alive. So from that decision, Go find out. Go find out, make the first step. You can realize that actually right was not the right answer.
Yeah.
And the interesting part is that now that you've made that decision, the brain's like, all right, so now that you're turning right, here's what you're going to do. Boom, 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 boom. Like you got all the strategy instead of, and I've been guilty so much of using my mind more than my heart. I guess it's the longest journey, right? They say from the head to the heart, and then life is going to show you if you don't. And
Yeah.
that's where you bring the knowledge, new lessons with you. And so, yeah, it's very important to make a decision and to choose. And I like that, you're also teaching about the I am statements, because it's truly like a direct, everything that you say internally or outside as your word is what creates your reality.
Beautiful. Let's get a little last part of our deep dive here. Let's keep going on this decision piece. There's so many things in what you said. I like to say this could be a long form show, but I want to keep it potent for the men. Uh, I think there's such a fear for men to be wrong, to make the wrong decision, to look like they don't know, to look like they're not smart. And that will often just stifle any change or any movement because there's a comfort zone that men want to live in because there is a fear deeper down that they love will be withheld, right? Or they're not going to be good enough, which really are the two core wounds that we're all healing from, that we're not enough and that we won't be loved or love will be withdrawn. And there's this fear that if we make the wrong decision, that that's going to happen. And in what I'm hearing you say, and I think it's just so valuable to really bring this forward for men, is you don't make a right or wrong decision. You make a decision and you make it right. And it's a little flip of that, but it's paradigm changing to do that. Where we're looking for all the evidence. I used to tell men, like, if you're making a decision by making a pro and con list and seeing which one is longer, that is the absolute wrong way, right? There's going to be things that you have to leave behind. There's going to be things that you're going to have to give up that seem really juicy to make this decision. And, one of the things in our group we've talked about decision to decide something. Side is to kill, right? Herbicides, pesticides, genocide,
Mhm,
decide. It's to cut
mhm,
off any other possibility, right? So we have to kill the version of ourselves that we were before to become something that we weren't. It's the hardest part is the letting go of that previous version of ourselves into what you've said a number of times on this show already is that unknown, and you have to go into that unknown. That is the period of chaos. It is the period of, I don't know what's going to happen yet, but I know once I get there, I'll be able to then take the next step and then take the next step. And one last thing that and I'll have you share on this as well again, but either it's going to be shock, right? Where you get the diagnosis, you file the bankruptcy, the wife or fiance walks out on you, and you're like, oh, I better change now. And in our work, we say, do you want to get hit by a feather, a brick, or a truck?
mhm.
Right? Feathers feel
That's a good
nice.
one.
Yeah, bricks
Yeah.
hurt and trucks kill. And a lot of men will wait for the truck. Meanwhile, they missed all the signs and signals along the way that were like, hey, it's time for change. It's time for change. And because you didn't, it gets louder and louder and louder. And I found that in my chiropractic office where pain is an indicator that something needs to change. Pain is telling you something is not right. It's the body's way of communicating. The louder the pain, the bigger the your body's trying to get your attention, right? And in our culture, we mask it, we cover it up, we divert our attention where we don't want to pay attention to it until life literally, in your words, will humble you to say you got to make this change. So I think in our work together, it's like, how do you get that signal earlier? How do you get the whispers? How do you tap into what is off so you can correct it now as opposed to when the wife is walking out the door? Because those
Mhm.
signs and symptoms were there. She didn't just get up and leave. My
Oh,
question to men is like,
100%.
when did she really walk out the door? Right. So, yeah.
Yeah. I like what you're saying about the signal, because one thing that I've realized over 2 decades, a minimum, is that, and that's an invitation for guys also, is that when you think about the goal or whatever you want to create, what are you most focused on? Because I think I was always focused on what's the worst case scenario, which is such a bad thing to do. And because I tell my man, like, if like I take this bottle, for example, and I say, imagine that this is all the energy that you have in your day. This is energy of creation. And of that, if I ask you, what's the percentage of your worry in that, like your fear, like percentage wise of energy, like how much of your thoughts are allocated to fear and worry? Sometimes guys would say 60 to 70%. Can you imagine that? Like 60 to 70%, it's wasted energy. And first, and not only wasted, is that it creates even more of it, more of the reality that you don't want. So the reason why I say signal is, to me, I see focus. And where do you put your attention? Are you thinking about, I'm afraid of losing, or actually, I'm so excited to win? That's a huge shift, because it's almost like instead of looking in the rear mirror, you're looking ahead, and you're just focused on where you're going, instead of always looking on the right side. Like, it's too late. Like, don't think about that. Like, just don't even, like, let go the resentment. Like, just focus on your goal. And like, that brings a whole lot different of energy. This comes back to exactly what we said in the beginning, right? Fear or excitement, what's the difference? One is expecting the outcome to be positive, the other one is negative. So focus is so important for men. And of course, allowing, there's the feminine energy in that, but just asking ourselves, based on what I want to do today, how much of my thoughts are allocated to fear and or guilt and shame or whatever. I spend so much time losing all of my precious energy of creation because of the feeling I had, or the shame, when I, owing so much money to the banks, and feeling not appropriate to support the woman. And then I realized all of that kept me in that state and in that situation for such a longer time, as opposed to, it's an inner work of confidence. And really, here's another point, is that I think I've seen what it is to pretty much have like great things on the outside, but there's a difference of having that and looking at a sunset and it feels like it's gray, or looking at a sunset because internally you feel so good, it feels you're alive. And that's the most important point. Like, now that's a foundation, that's a lighthouse that creates, that guides and everything. So for me, when I'm thinking of what matters, is that energy that you have inside, because we're all trying to get something in order to feel something. And the beauty is that we can create that feeling now. And it might just be, I'm worthy of having it. I am loving myself. There's a great book by, it's like, Love Yourself as If Your Life Depends on It. I'm trying to remember the author, but it's so good. I love myself. I love myself. That and confidence and knowingness that you're worthy, because you're God's divine creation. Why would we not be? And so we put all these filters of crap that we need to remove. And knowing that now, really at the source, we are alive, we are loving, we are creation, we are expansion, and we're also leaving a legacy.
Love that. Right on time. And just to, because I really want to like bring a nice wrap on this. It plays into your code that you have in your group around optimism,
Mm,
and I love that. And that's not something we commonly hear of as a code to live by. But it's like, is it Henry Ford? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And
mhm.
it's like, why not be optimistic? Like, and I think men, there's this limiter we put on of like, can I allow myself to it to be really amazing? What would it be like for things to be beyond what I can imagine? They say realists and pessimists are often more right because they only allow themselves to experience a certain range of reality, where optimists may be wrong more, but when they're right, it's that much greater. And I might be getting that a little skewed there, but I love the idea of optimism, because can you allow it to be really great and feel like you deserve it? I think there's a guilt because, there's famine in the world, there's strife in the world, there's people that are suffering in the world. And it's like, with all of that going on, can we still allow it to be so much greater? I don't think there's a benefit of being a martyr. I should suffer because there's other suffering, because that doesn't actually help anyone or anything, especially myself.
So I'll finish with this story, and I feel like I realized that once. And in all honesty, I think it was that's who I am. I'm very authentic. So it was a mushroom trip, I think. But it's always ceremonial. There's an intention. But one thing I realized, and that's very important, based on what you're saying, is that, do you know what the chances are for you to be alive? Have you ever Googled that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's 1 in 400 trillions. It's like, it's a small little chance. So I calculate because I love statistics and I'm like, well, what are the chances of winning the lottery? So winning the lottery is 1,000 times, actually 1,000 times 300 easier to win the lottery than being alive. So then the thought came in my mind. I'm like, imagine God, he's giving you this chance. Like, he's like, all right, 1 in 400, that's you, my friend. You can have it. Like, you have this life and you have all the gifts and talents. It's all created for you. You're so unique. You're so unique. And then we're in this life and we're trying to copy other people and we're not sure about our worth and we're not sure about our dreams. And why should I be like guilty because, we have more than others? God would be like, dude, I give you to all. Like, this is what I gave you. I gave you this chance. Like, don't copy. Like, you
Yeah.
have this DNA that's so special. Use it. Use it. And if you have more than other, I made it for you because I know you can create so much more legacy. You can have an impact. So please, please use your chance. And I think it's a great way of reminding ourselves that, am I alive when I'm alive? Like, I got this chance, 1 in 400 trillions. That's crazy. And when you really get that, uh, okay, you know what? I've got my own codes, my DNA. I'm special. Let's go. Let's use it. I think it's about, for me, my mission is about to use the full potential of what I have and to discover and really going back to the source of God, and just saying, I am that I am. Like, I can create anything, and God will be like, yes, you got it. Like, you got all that power. Use it. Amazing. Congratulations. Fear. Yes, I put that in the game so that you can grow yourself and just realize what are the lies, what are the illusions, and what are the truth.
I'm so glad that we got a chance to do this episode. I feel like there's got to be a part 2 and 3 follow up at some point
I
because
agree. I agree. I haven't even told the story about really the nightclub, but yeah, it's been the
well,
way it was because I think that's what's probably needed to be heard,
yeah.
and then
So
we can
maybe as
continue
we
that
wrap,
later.
if you can share a little bit about the nightclub. I know we've been weaving it in with your values, we've been weaving in with a little bit of the process, but so men out there can know. And one thing we talked about prior to getting on this is like we're here to be allies for each other. We're here to
Hmm.
support one another and promote one another. There's a lot of men in the world. There's a lot of men that need support. There's a lot of men out there looking for it. And the more we can band together and support one another, the better the world's going to be. It's not about my thing versus your thing. It's really one big our thing. So I'd love for men to hear a little bit more about the nightclub and how they can find you and the mission behind that. And this will also be in the show notes, so men could
Yeah.
click on that stuff as well.
Well, I'm debating, and maybe I will actually share. There's a YouTube video that just came out from a training that I had 2 weeks ago in Laguna. And so the inception of the nightclub, without knowing, was created 2 years ago at a very deep moment of my life where I thought about ending it. And if I summarize everything, because there's a lot of components to it, but the reason I'm here is because of my brother, you know? So this guy was there at the right time. And it just shows that it's so important to have, and it gave me permission. And I made that decision to change after that, you know? So I think we're creating, like, I had the wrong identity. The way I saw myself was depreciating, and then I realized, thanks to my brother, and that's what I think is so important, is not just in times of, also when you're down, they can, you're choosing a different identity, you're deciding what you want, and it's also the times to celebrate, and like you said, not compete but collaborate with others. I think we've been in a society where it was all about competing, and then we realize we're never winning. When I think, when I look at the brotherhoods that are out there are different versions, different types of coffee flavors. And, you can just actually say, wow, this is great. Then I can integrate that into mine. And it's even better if actually, this is one of my vision, that brotherhoods can come together for big events where now, instead of having small little events, and now it's a great events, even more things to be given to the man, better exercises, better locations, better activities, expansion, transformation. And I think that's what's needed to really bring all men together and have our own flavors. For us, the flavor is once it's about goal achievement and human performance. So we really focus like half of our time on that with thinking into results. Because to me, it's like, okay, I'm part of this. What's my legacy? What's my mission? I want to accomplish it. I want to know how I will do it. And I will rewire my brain. I will look at my paradigms. I'll look at my self image. I'll get rid of my fear because I know how it works. Name it. So that's what we do. The rest of it is masterminding sessions. We brought a woman actually, and I know when guys said, "Are you going to bring a woman?" I'm like, "Yeah, she's gonna." She wanted to embody the sacred masculine energy, and guys loved it. And it was also a vision, a different perspective from a woman. So all of these things are, and then you can bring in like the people that can talk about their business, and it's hot seats, and it's also collaboration and potential opportunities. So the vision for nightclub is to have all these chapters around the world to become, and I say the best, but you're the best. Like the distinction is like, is your mom the best mom in the world? Yes, my mom's the best mom in the world as well. So my goal is like, let's shoot for excellence, the best men's club in the world based on our values, and that they can travel anywhere, and they know that these guys hold the same codes of honor, and they like, he's my friend, I can do life and business with this guy. So in a nutshell, that's what the nightclub is all about.
Love it. Again, so many overlapping themes with what we do. And I love the theme of excellence. And I encourage men out there, find your tribe, find the ones that resonate with you. Obviously, there's been so much crossover in what Francis and I have been talking about today because these are the common themes, the common laws in which we guide our life and guide personal growth. And find your flavor. I love that. We have different flavors of coffee. Find your flavor, find the people, the men that you resonate with the most. I think the ultimate message here is you got to do the work. So, men out there, I hope you found this inspiring. I hope this caused you to shift your physiology enough to move from fear to excitement, to take an action step, to be more optimistic about your life, to decide a new path forward, even if you have to step into that unknown. Francis, I really want to thank you for being on the show today. I'm looking forward to watching this when it comes out. And for all you men out there, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, my friend.